Hello everyone, welcome to StudyTravel TV Live, a show of news, statistics and opinion. I'm Matthew Knott, news editor of StudyTravel Magazine.
Hello everyone, I'm Bethan Norris, Senior Editor of StudyTravel Magazine. Before we get started, for the best viewing experience, please put the call in side-by-side speaker view. You'll see an icon in the top right corner where you can select the view.
We are delighted to welcome you all today to this episode of StudyTravel TV Live. In today's broadcast, we'll begin with a news story and then be joined by our guest this week, Paolo Barilari, Director of Lingue nel Mondo Agency, President of Felca and Vice President of Italian Agency Association IALCA, and Andreas Carrion, Marketing Director of Escuela de Idiomas Nerja in Spain.
If you have any questions for the presenters or guest speakers or comments on any of our stories, please post them in the chat box and we'll read them out at the end. A big thank you to the sponsor of this episode, Londonist.
Okay, so let's take a look at our first story. And world tourism is likely to reach 2/3 of pre-pandemic levels by the end of 2022, according to the latest World Tourism Barometer from the United Nations World Tourism Organization, or UNWTO.
In the latest barometer, UNWTO estimates that there were 700 million international arrivals globally between January and September 2022, a 133% increase compared with the same period of 2021, and equating to around 63% of 2019 levels.
By region, the UNWTO said that the recovery had been strongest in Europe, which had 477 million arrivals between January and September this year, 81% of the same period in 2019. This was driven by strong intra-regional demand, UNWTO said.
The Middle East has reached 77% of 2019 levels so far this year, while Africa and the Americas have both reached more than 60%. However, Asia has been the slowest region to reopen and recover, and January to September 2022 arrivals were only 17% of pre-pandemic levels, which UNWTO said was partly attributable to prolonged lockdowns in China.
Okay, so at this point, we'd like to introduce our guests this week. Paolo is there, and Andreas is there. Hello, how are you? Thank you for joining us. Paolo, these figures that we've just presented refer to the wider tourism industry, but do you believe they are consistent with what the language study travel sector has experienced this year?
I think, yes, definitely so. I mean, tourism in Italy has been booming, both inbound and outbound. And the language travel industry, I mean, language courses abroad also, we noticed a significant growth in numbers. And I think it will continue because people have been locked for 2 years. I mean, we are all keen to travel and to start again what we have lost for so many months. The only question marks are the war, the cost of energy and the inflation rate. But I mean, having said that, I think that the trend is there. I mean, we are managing COVID in a nice way, better than before, apart from China. And I don't think we will stop. So I think it's going to be a positive year.
Okay, thank you. And Andreas, Spain performed better than many of the English language speaking destinations in 2021, as we reported earlier in the year from Fidele's annual data. Was this also your experience, and how have things been in 2022 for the Spanish language teaching sector?
Hello, Bethan. First of all, thanks for inviting Escuela de Idiomas Nerja to your program. And yes, from our experience during this year, the market began to breathe again. We had a good number of students coming earlier this year than the years before, even before the pandemic. And even if we don't have exactly the same numbers as before, During some months, we had even 70% more students than the years before, such as in September, October, and we are seeing a nice recovery in the market.
Excellent news. And Andreas, in this report, the UNWTO noted that a number of Latin American destinations, including Colombia and Mexico, have already reached sort of pre-pandemic tourism arrival levels. Have you experienced any loss of market share to Latin America?
Well, really, after last years, we lost so much market that not really. We are growing right now. We know South America is a competitive market and a great destination, but for Europeans, it's also a long trip. And the average student weeks are like 2 weeks course. So usually they prefer a short and direct flight to a closest destination.
Okay, and Paolo, as an agent, how are you finding travel booking currently? Has supply recovered, do you think? And is the cost of travel preventing students from booking?
Good point. I mean, this is one of the problems the agents are facing, and of course, together with the clients, the students. I mean, judging from the experience of last summer, first of all, we have had strikes. You remember, probably many of us remember our group students, I mean, staying at the airport, being forced to go back to the school because the flights were canceled. Then also, the number of flights probably are slightly less than they used to be. Prices are going up. And for some destinations, I mentioned one that is very important for the Italian market, Ireland. Ireland, from Italy, direct flights, we have only 2 airlines, which makes the situation much less competitive for the airlines. And they are able to price up the flights to levels that are sometimes unacceptable for our clients. So yes, this is a problem.
Yeah, hopefully things will improve there soon. Let's move on to our next story. And English UK has reported a strong recovery for the junior sector in particular in its latest quarterly intelligence cohort report, or QUIC scheme, covering the peak July to September period of 2022. Based on a sample of 119 members who provided data for both years, overall student weeks increased by 237% in 2022 Q3 compared with 2021 Q3, English UK said.
Junior student weeks, meanwhile, increased by 3,254% in 2022 Q3, when they accounted for 39% of all student weeks, a comparable ratio to pre-pandemic levels. Groups were also more prominent in this quarter, representing 36% of student weeks.
Italy returned to the top of the source market table with almost 33,000 student weeks at the UK ELT centres providing this data, and accounted for almost 30% of all of the junior student weeks in this quarter. Saudi Arabia was the second largest source market, followed by Spain, Brazil and France.
English UK said that the recovery was mixed by market, with Germany and Brazil actually exceeding pre-pandemic student week levels in 2022 Q3, while most European markets reached more than 50% of 2019 numbers. However, China and Russia recorded only 18% and 4% of 2019 numbers, respectively.
Agents accounted for 4 in 5 of all student weeks delivered in 2022 Q3, a slight increase compared with the previous quarters.
So, Paolo, we'll go to you first. You must be pleased to see Italy back at the top of the source country list again. Was the UK the top destination for Italian students in 2022? And did Ireland take a larger than usual share?
Of course, this goes without saying that we're happy to be number 1 again, and this is important. But we're talking about Q3, which is the summer months, like July, August, and September. And then we have groups and juniors, and the UK doesn't present any problem for us apart from the passport. Ireland has been also a good destination, but as I said, prices for flights were very high. And there was quite a consistent lack of homestays. It's also something to take into consideration. Ireland has less destinations than the UK. You have more airports, you have more host families, a huge variety of colleges and campuses. So I think that still, even with the need to have a passport, the UK is #1 destination. But we have to see what will happen during the winter, because this is the problem for the Italian groups. And I don't know if this is the problem for other nationalities as well. With a passport, being the classrooms in Italy very mixed by nationality, there are some pupils that they will need not only the passport, because the passport is a foreign country, it's not Italian, they will need a visa. And this will stop quite a few mini states groups for next winter.
Yeah, thank you. We'll maybe come back to that in a moment. Andreas, how was the junior business in Spain this year, and which have been the quickest sort of junior markets to recover for you?
Well, we had a good summer with the juniors, but I have to say that we usually, before the pandemic, we had a number of close groups that repeated year after year. And we noticed that this year wasn't the year for them. Well, we had a few of these groups, but we are getting more and more requests for next year. So we are willing to have even better numbers next year.
Great. Well, that's something to look forward to. So back to you again, Paolo. We mentioned group bookings in the story. In our most recent show, we talked about the end of ID card travel to the UK and lobbying from UK tourism bodies for a group travel solution for European juniors. As an Italian agent and the vice president of the Italian Agency Association, IALCA, what is your perspective on this issue?
I think it would be a great thing if we could travel with a group passport with a list of names. I mean, why do you need a passport to check the legal traveling between two countries? But we're talking about students with a teacher, a group leader. I don't think there is any danger in letting people travel with a lighter way of checking their identity. It is very important. And all the English schools, the British schools, they know it. I mean, we've been talking as IALCA and also as Felca with the English UK and British Council. And the idea that all the schools are lobbying, it's very welcomed in Italy.
Go, fingers crossed there.
Yes.
In these quarterly surveys, English UK usually finds that around 75 to 80% of student weeks come via agencies, and that is consistent with StudyTravel Magazine's annual market analysis surveys of UK ELT schools. Spain and most of the non-English destinations that we survey at StudyTravel Magazine tend to be a little bit lower, somewhere sort of between 30 and 50% coming from students coming from agents in Spain, for example. Why do you think this is, Andreas? And do you think that agent usage will actually increase now in this sort of post-pandemic period?
Well, hopefully, yes. Actually, I think there is a little mixture of countries inside Europe that are really interested into expanding a little bit with this, such as Germany, Sweden. I think we are seeing a lot of improvement.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's take a look at our next story. EF has released the 2022 version of its English Proficiency Index, which compares English language skills by country based on the results of more than 2.1 million EF English tests taken in 2021.
The Netherlands retained its position at the top of the EPI with an average score of 661 from a maximum of 800. Followed by Singapore, which has steadily climbed up the rankings, Austria, Norway, and Denmark.
By region, Europe has comfortably the highest average score, which increased this year, but second-placed Asia decreased. Latin America had the highest year-on-year increase and overtook Africa to become the third-ranked region for the first time.
Despite some improvements, the major ELT markets such as Italy, Spain, and South Korea remained in the moderate proficiency band, according to EF, and Japan stayed in the low proficiency category.
EF noted that the youngest age group analysed, 18 to 20, has experienced a drop of 50 points over the last 2 years, and the authors argued this could be an impact of the pandemic, with reduced opportunities for face-to-face learning and travel. The 26 to 30 cohort had the highest average score at 530.
Okay, so Paolo, according to this analysis, Italy remains in the moderate proficiency category for English. So that doesn't apply to yourself, of course, as, or Andreas here. But what do you think makes the difference in these results between, say, Italy and Spain on one hand, in the moderate band, and the Netherlands and Austria and Scandinavian country in the high proficiency band?
Well, there are several reasons, Matthew. The first one, that Spain, France, and Italy, that I see all light green, we come from a Latin language, which is quite far away from the English language. All the other countries that you mentioned, like Denmark or Sweden, Norway, or Holland, they have a language that comes from the same roots. So, of course, it is a bit easier for a Dutch to speak English, especially Dutch, because they have a language which is a mix of German and English in a way. So they halfway advantage from an Italian speaker. Then, of course, what I think you mentioned also, for the younger ones, the 2 years of lockdown has made the things worse, the situation even worse. Austria, I checked why Austria is so good recently. It seems that the school system is very good in teaching English. 73% of the Austrians, they are proficient, or at least they can talk without problems in English, which is 73% regardless of the age range, which is very good. Italians are low, yes, I think they're growing, especially the age range that you've pointed out, a little bit older. I also should be happy in a way that our students, they don't speak so well English, because then we have a lot of clients moving to the UK, but this is not so nice to say. But, if the Italians are going to speak English well, probably they will move to second and third language, which is a natural evolution in the future years to Spain or France or Germany. But how the situation is right now, we need to improve our English, and then you welcome us, and you and Ireland for sure.
Okay, thank you. And Andreas, do the nationalities that rank highly in English proficiency, the Netherlands, Austria, and the Scandinavians, also show the same acumen in Spanish language exams?
Well, generally, yes, because, from these countries, as it was said, they have a great tradition of having 2 or 3 languages. And also, I think it's important that in some of these countries, when you have the chance to watch television, they have the programs in their original language. And that's quite important for the future students, because they make an habit of it. Also, we have to take in consideration about the age rate, because the younger students, as you are telling, do improve a lot and really are really good in this kind of exams to show their level. But when they are a little bit older, they just prefer to relax a little bit and take it easy.
Okay, and are they important markets for your school?
Well, yes, mainly the Scandinavian market. Andalusia is a great destination for them. And since many years, even before the pandemic, they are buying houses here in Andalusia, just for holidays or for living, or maybe just for once they are retired. So that makes them want to learn the language and our customs and know more about us. And that's great.
Okay, good stuff. Thank you. Paolo, IALCA recently hosted its Salon del Lingue events, which are a combination of workshop and student fair. And you've just touched on this, and at the time you told StudyTravel Magazine that there were quite a few Spanish language providers at that event, and you told me that the interest in the non-English languages and destinations was growing. So why do you think this is?
Yeah, of course. As I said before, after English, I mean, the second most spoken language widely worldwide is Spanish. And being Spanish also so close to Italian, I think that it's a natural second language for Italians. That's why the interest is so high, because, I mean, I don't say effortless, but with less efforts, you get Spanish being an Italian. But also, we have had a lot of teachers and a lot of students asking for other languages. German and French mostly. We had the edition 2021, we had also a Russian school, Leiden and Dance. And but you know, actually the interest of the students is 75% for English. So the schools that are arriving to our Salone delle Lingue, they know in advance that the students are visiting all the tables, but their main interest is English. But I think this is everywhere. Any workshop is like that.
Okay, and there was an interesting finding in the report that the average scores of the 18 to 20 age group have decreased over the last 2 years. Do you think that could be a result of COVID restrictions and online learning, Paolo?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And another thing that the COVID will bring, or has already brought, that before the first experience abroad, like language travel, was 13, 14-year-old. And now we have a generation that they stayed home and they traveled for the first time when they are 16. So their needs are, let's say, 2 years back. They are not so mature as the 16-year-old before COVID.
Okay, and is this your finding as well, Andreas?
Well, we think that generally parents are more aware of sending their kids over. Maybe this is one of the reasons. The other might be because they are not sure about the conditions they will find. But that's something that little by little, I think is getting better. And as I said, for next year, we are finding that more groups around this age are willing to travel. And about the online courses, I think that's a nice tool that came to stay, but it's not overlapping the presential courses. People prefer to still traveling, and after 2 years at home, sure, they want to come to Spain, Italy, and move around the world.
Yeah, is this a timely reminder that the full immersion study abroad programs are the gold standard of language learning, and could this therefore be a positive for the sector if we have this generation looking to catch up with lost time?
Yes,
Paolo,
sure, sure. They are. I think after 2 years at home, they need to develop themselves, to move around, to see the world, and to get again this time that they lost. And many of them are willing to start moving. I'm sure about that.
Would you agree, Paolo?
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Perfect.
Okay, I think that brings us up to date with all the stories this week. At this point, we'll open up to the audience to see if there are any questions for our guests or for the Study Travel team. These can be on any of the stories or topics we have discussed.
And we've got a question there actually from Anthony, which I guess for you, Paolo, is what is the most popular English exam amongst Italian students?
Well, I think the two most popular exams are Cambridge exam and IELTS exam, by far. IELTS, it's a bit more flexible with the dates, and also, if I remember well, I might be mistaken, but if I remember well, IELTS only lasts 2 years, which gives more credibility to the result of the exams, because after 2 years, your level could have been, you know, down or up from the moment you have taken the exam. So IELTS and Cambridge for sure, with IELTS growing and Cambridge maybe going a little bit down.
Okay, thank you. Just while we're waiting to see if there are any more questions there, Paolo, what can you tell us about Felca? You're the president of Felca, and can you tell us anything about your plans for the next few months for Felca?
Yeah, the plans for the next few months is, number one, get more national associations, because the more we are, the better we can discuss all the, all the things that are running and are happening in our sector, in our industry. And the second thing is what happened with the best practice, Alto best practice. And I think it's a very good document. Alto worked together, schools and agents. Alto is a platform where agents and schools are together, an association more than a platform. And they developed this best practice document that Felca read, and also YALC, the school association. And we like it. And the idea is that next year we'll try to promote the best practice all over our national members, and see if we can have a quite high number of agencies adopting this best practice. This is the first main target that we have.
Okay, thank you. Look like we have.
Okay.
More.
All right. Well, that looks like that's the end of our audience Q&A, which brings us to the end of this week's StudyTravel TV Live.
Yeah, this was actually our last broadcast of 2022, so we'll be back in late January. You can visit the StudyTravel TV Live page on the StudyTravel Network, which you can find under the magazine section in the menu, as you can see on the screen there. And on this page, we'll be announcing the guest speakers for the next broadcast and the dates for that broadcast, as well as a recording of this episode, and all the past episodes are there on that page as well.
So that's it for today. We'd like to say a big thank you to our special guests. Andreas, thank you for your time and insights today.
Thank you very much. Happy Christmas to everyone.
Paolo, thank you for joining us again and sharing your thoughts.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
And thank you again to our sponsor this week, Londonist. And thanks to everyone for watching. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.